any concept is inadequate to God. And this should be understood in a positive way, because would God be caught into a concept, it would not be God. No, we can admit that. The principle explained expressed by Augustine, saying that if you comprehend it, it is not him. Okay. Well, I think that everyone would agree about that, including the atheist. So the problem is to measure the concept against God and not reduce God to a concept. If you reduce God to a concept, what you get is not God. It's why all the concepts, when they are used in dogmatic way, affirmative way, lead to something like an idolatry. And to use idol about concept, it was made by Nietzsche. It is not my invention. So when he says the twilight of the idols, he was speaking about the concept of metaphysics, causality, consciousness, necessity, liberty, and freedom, and all that stuff. So the difficulty for us is to measure how far a concept could be divine enough, so to speak, to be related to God. So the question is, what are not the best, but the less deficient concept applied to God? So I argued, for instance, that being, in particular existence, does not match very good the divinity of God. The essence, being as essence, so everyone agrees that God has no essence, because only finite things has an essence that could be defined. So the unknowability of God, that's okay. So now it's about existence. And the real thing, when we argue whether God does exist or not, the question is, the difficulty is not about God, it's about the meaning of existence. Because we don't know, the first thing is that it's very difficult to give a definition of existence. The best definition of existence we have had during a long period was that of Kant. Existence is just the fact for something to be, as he say, put down, gesetzt, out of thought. And Kant argues that this cannot be thought, because to exist is to be out of the mind. People will agree with that, to be real, as they say. But to be real out of the mind means that you have no concept of it, because it is out of the mind. So there is no definition of existence. That's the first point. When you say something exists, it is a way of experiencing the thing, but it is not a quality you can describe. It is not real, it is exactly what Kant said. Existence is not a real predicate. That is, it is not a new information about the thing. So when you say God exists, you don't give a clue about God. And when you say it does not exist, either. Because this is the second point about existence. We don't know the meaning of existence, and perhaps it is impossible by definition. But everything exists. This desk exists, this camera exists, those trees exist, the dust on the floor exists. What do we add to the divine by saying that it exists? What difference does it make? Everything exists, and it is not a great qualification. And there is more. Then there are cases where we interact with something which does not exist, and it is nevertheless very real. And one of the examples of that is the case of love. Because we can perfectly well love somebody which is no more existing, which is not yet existing, and we can be driven by that through all our existence. And when I say that, it is not a paradox. It is, we have all examples of that. So the question of the existence of God perhaps has no more meaning than to ask whether God, what is the color of God? Is God red or blue? To some extent, you can say that God is red, insofar as God is a burning bush, or that God is blue, because the sky is blue, and God is coming out of the blue. Nevertheless, why not? But it is as metaphorical to say that God exists. So there is some idolatry, a bit ridiculous, when philosophers argue about the existence of God. Because indeed, the guy who says there is no existing God has no idea of God at all, or simply a very narrow and childish definition of God as the universal cause, as the ruling judge of bad and evil, something very childish and primitive. Most of the official atheists imagine God. So they are negatively dealing with idols. But the theist arguing that he can demonstrate the existence of God by necessary reason and demonstration, is dealing with God exactly as he could discuss the existence of any other thing. So God is an idol, a positive idol in his case. So the question is that not only they don't know exactly the meaning of existence, none of them, because philosophers don't know either. But they don't really understand what they mean when they say God. So our relation to God is not a relation to an object. Our real relation to God is a relation more similar to intersubjectivity. And when we are in relation to someone, when you want to seduce a woman, you don't demonstrate her existence. It is not the point. She does exist. You do exist. This being said, everything has to be built up. And it is not a question of explaining or proving something. It is a question of interacting by speaking in being spoken. And so you have to say anything you want. The point is to trigger some reaction from her. So it is not what means a lot is not what you say. It is the fact that you say to her in such a way that you praise her, you make her feel good, and so on and so on. And our relation to God is exactly that. And we are in a situation to the V1 which is under seduction by God. So it's why we have to shift from one way of thinking to another. And many discussions about God and religious life are very inaccurate, pointless, because we use in that field concepts, arguments, words which may work in another world and another field than that field.